I think we might get started. What? It's live. Okay. Okay. I'll just let Paul plug his computer in. Okay. I think we might get started. I'd like to acknowledge the land that we meet on today is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. Roll call. Councillor Hughes is going to be 1 hour late. He's presenting at Barunga West Council tonight. So we've got apologies from Councillor Shanks. He's doing a workshop tonight. And motions to grant leave of absence. Are there any motions to grant leave of absence? Yes, I'm moving now. I'm moving down there. Yes, I'm doing that. Motions to grant leave of absence. Are there any motions to grant leave of absence, councillors? Leave of absence, Councillor Ethan White, 20th of October 2024 to 13th of December 2024. 2.5, non-attendance. Councillor Hughes is going to be 1 hour late, and Councillor Shanks is an apology. So, public open forum. Public open forum, Adrian Shackley, if you'd like to come to the... You'd like to turn the microphone on? There you go. It's working.
Excellent. Always good to check. Yes, hello everybody. A few things I wanted to discuss tonight briefly. One was to just talk about the forum that's on tomorrow night relating to the Greater Adelaide Regional Plan. Which we sent out an invite to members of council about a week ago, I think. Anyway, and I'm just here tonight to further invite people who are interested to come along. You would have seen from the speakers on the list that we're trying to get quite a regional sort of input. So Barossa, Light, Gawler, and Rob Cheeseman, who comes from Adelaide, but who's got a history of writing about planning in Gawler. Since 1839. Not Rob Cheeseman since 1839, but the planning since 1839. I think it'll be a fairly informal and interesting discussion. And this process is obviously going on for a number of months still, so it's important to get some fleshing out of some of the ideas that are on the table. I mean, one of the things that's not mentioned in council documents that I've seen much is the resurrection of the Greater Roseworthy plan, which remember was 100,000 people 10 years ago and went back to 10, and now it seems to have reappeared. So Mr Higginbotham's obviously a very successful lobbyist. But yeah, that sort of stuff has massive potential implications for Gawler. In terms of the community plan, transport plan, council's obviously been working away on that, and the commentary on the GARP thing. I'd have to say the GARP doesn't inspire you very much for knowing what's going on. I mean, the commentary that was in the Bunyip 3 weeks ago read like an episode of Utopia. You know, everything's going to be fine. It's all terrific. We're planning, we're doing this, we're doing that. Don't worry, you know, it's all good. No substance much at all, really. It was just verbiage, anyway. And I think Council's taking a good approach in terms of saying, well, you know, there are issues that we want to pursue. Let's pursue them. One issue, though, that I don't think should be in the Council's report is this documentation on page 36 and 37 of the agenda paper, which has got this coloured map. I mean, I don't know where it came from, but it's come completely out of the blue without any consultation or process at all. And, you know, it shouldn't be there, basically. But as well as that, I mean, the map's sort of odd. It's instead of using the terminology of the, you know, GARP about investigation areas, it labels the pink area suburban residential, and it's got a rural neighbourhood zone sort of fitted in there and everything else. Well, and an employment triangle of 70 hectares. Well, you know, no one's heard of that. You can't drop those sort of things into documents and send them off to the state government on behalf of the Gawler community and say, well, that's got some credibility. It hasn't. You know, by all means say we're going to have some more investigation about, you know, employment lands or something like that, but don't put a plan like that in. I think that'll do me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Adrian Shackley. We'll move on to deputations. Anybody else want to speak in public open forum? Yes. You can ask a question. He needs to turn the microphone off.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Shackley, for that. I'm just wondering, obviously we had that quite extensive consultation around the Gawler Growth Framework, which we proposed, and we found quite a few things out in there, particularly in regard to the need for employment land and people to have job opportunities up here. It also mentions in the GARP submission report here about the extreme lack of employment land. I believe the figure was something like 668. I guess from your point of view, given that we have a lack of employment land, that feedback from the community that they really want more and a deadline which is less than a month away, what in your view is the most appropriate way to go about defining that, and what would be your alternative to what is on page 37 here?
I mean, first of all, the Gawler's council plan that went in had a large component of employment land on Hales Road area. Some of that's still existing, I think, in the government response. That's a big area of land, 100 hectares roughly. You know, that's more than probably the employment land that's been taken up in Gawler in the last 30 years. I mean, I'm not against employment land. I think it's a good idea, but you have to have the right process to think about it and go about it. I mean, you know, we've got land at just in Gawler Belt and land in Elizabeth that's, you know, already zoned and available. It's not taken up in quite a few cases, so I don't think there's any rush to put forward a plan that's, you know, hasn't been thought about. I mean, just another comment on that report, it says it's adjacent to the Sturt Highway. Well, if that's adjacent to the Sturt Highway, I'm adjacent to Wasley's. I just don't think it's a credible sort of document if it's got that sort of, you know, commentary in it and the descriptions of the colour scheme there. So I don't have a problem with employment land. The council needs to do some work on that, but it already has quite significantly. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a subsequent question?
just to clarify, thank you, Mr. Shackley, for that. My question was more around, you said that we require a process for that. What's the ideal process in your mind for getting to that point?
Just turn your microphone on,
I've
Adrian.
attended most of the forums, I think, that the council's run on GARP. Hasn't been mentioned. There's a comment in there about, it came up from some council members at a meeting, well, maybe, and there was to be a report by February 2025. The process for GARP is pretty open-ended. It's not going to be finalised for the next 6 months. I mean, if council's got some other proposals, I think that's fair enough. But there are lots of other issues that we might like to explore, but just dropping something into a report that hasn't been discussed anywhere, I just don't think that's appropriate. I mean, have a comment in there by all means that, you know, council would like to investigate further employment lands. That would be appropriate.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? We'll move on. Does anybody else want to speak in public open forum? No. Deputations, Corinna Stormer, submission to the review of the Gawler Community Plan 230 plus. Thank you. If you'd like to turn the microphone on. There you go.
Hello everyone. For those of you who've not met me before, I'm Corinna Stormer. I'm the owner of Leslie's of Gawler in the Main Street. Born in Gawler, spent many years away, zipped in, zipped out for various reasons, travel, family, etc. But now I own Leslie's, and I'm very passionate about Gawler. Gawler, every time I came home, it felt like home. Every time, it was very comforting to come back to somewhere when you've been on the other side of the world and you come back into Gawler and you see a level of familiarity. But what I've also noticed over all the years that I've been away is the deterioration in Gawler, in that there has been so many poor planning issues. And so I have a couple of questions. Is there anybody here on the council that actually makes a living from the Main Street? Has anybody ever made a living from the Main Street? Hello, Jim. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah. Hello. Yeah. Hello. Yeah, I know you.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that it? So everybody else earns an income in some other way. Okay. So you've had this reviews just recently, and I know myself, and I know from all the other business owners I've spoken to, we had no idea there was a review going on for Gawler, and that has a huge impact on us in the Main Street. Our pay packet is variable. We may or may not have a pay packet at all, and our pay packets, if we get one, is deteriorating simply because of bad planning that has taken place in Gawler over the last few years. So I took over from Leslie, who had the business for quite some time. I have the figures for the 5 years prior to me taking over. We understand COVID's had a big impact, and once they opened the borders, everybody went, you know, under their doona and didn't come out for quite some time, and we still have an age demographic that's choosing not to go out and socialise. But Gawler is failing. Our retail sector is failing. We have got a Main Street that was once one of the best shopping towns in the state. And we have got now effectively maybe 5 businesses that are worthwhile visiting. We have small businesses here and there, which is a standard. You know, you have your hairdressers, of which we have an abundance of hairdressers, an abundance of nail salons, and we have an abundance of pubs. But we also have an abundance of 9 to 5, Monday to Friday businesses. That's not really appropriate for a Main Street if you're trying to actually encourage people to come to Gawler. We have all these new developments that are taking place on the outside, on the perimeter of Gawler. Gawler's going to fail because we are not spending enough time thinking about how we're going to make those people who will buy houses on the outside of Gawler successfully drive through Gawler and shop in Gawler. I can tell you now, I'm losing money every week compared to what we made last year, and I'm losing from the year before. And the previous owner, she was losing from the year before. I can tell you I'm not the only business in the Main Street that watches their income going down every week and every year. It's going down. We're getting no help because we are not being consulted. None of us knew that there was a review going through in the Main Street. Now, obviously, if you watch Facebook, because you've got time, fantastic. But what would it have taken to put a notice under the door of every business to let them know there's a review going through for Gawler? Didn't know anything about it at all until I was having a discussion with a customer who says, there's something going on today. And I said, that's fabulous. It's Saturday. I'm working and I've got one other staff member. And it turned out that the lady was related to the gentleman who was running the session, and she brought him over, and that was fabulous. So he gave me a piece of paper to tell me to submit a review. No date on it as to when that review needed to be submitted by. I finally managed to find time to get it in, and the submissions had closed by 4 weeks. That's not reasonable. We're trying to make a living, and all the decisions that get made in here are affecting our ability to run our businesses. The transport and the traffic situation in Gawler has become so destructive that while you have a huge amount of cars going past every single day, very few people choose to park down the main street of Gawler because the potential for a car park is variable. And if you do find a car park, you have 20 cars behind you who are all trying to shimmy you along faster or go around you while you're angled in. Many people don't have that confidence nor that skill level. We've lost multitude of car parking spaces in the main street, and as a result, businesses cannot survive. If the customers have nowhere to park, or they have a 2-hour parking zone with a relatively ruthless parking tendency, then we will struggle. The problem that we have is the elderly.
You've got 30 seconds.
Okay, that's fine. What we're saying is that Gawler Main Street is failing. If you want those business developments to come and actually keep Gawler going, keep jobs for your children, you need to do a better job, and you need to consult us. I've done a 6-page letter, which I'm pretty sure you've all seen, where I've had my share of say. Very happy to be involved, but so are the other business owners. But we're not even being told about it. And I think there needs to be a better job. And until you lose your pay packet, you won't understand what it's like. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Corinna. Thank you. Joe Mano, talking about GARP.
Yep. Hi, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. This will be brief. Just here in regards to item 10.3 on this evening's agenda. This is for the Greater Adelaide Regional Plan. So, as I'm sure you've been made aware, the current proposal released by the State Government Planning Commission differs significantly, in a number of key areas to the submission put forward by Council in consultation with residents. Specifically, I'm seeking Council support in relation to minimising the impact to residents of the proposed Northern Parklands. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my parents and a number of other residents who live in the current urban deferred zone of Evanston Gardens. This area is bounded by Coventry, Anglevale and Gordon Roads and is within a short walk of Tamberlin Station, Evanston Gardens School and Carbeethan Reserve. So the current draft plan proposes that this area of approximately 25 hectares be rezoned to parklands, which would then require forced acquisition of 11 homes across 14 properties. This proposal is totally at odds to what is proposed by Council, and as you can imagine, has caused significant distress to the numerous long-term residents in this precinct. The forced acquisition of private homes should only occur as a last resort. Given the area in question is less than 10% of the planned 313 hectare parkland, and the fact that the state government owns significant undeveloped land in the area, it seems that there are far better and less impactful options than forcing people like my parents who have owned the property for over 50 years out of their homes. Furthermore, it doesn't seem justifiable that an area already so well located to existing green space at Carbeethan Reserve, schools, public transport should be used as a parkland when its use seems far better aligned to the existing deferred urban zoning. We recognise that a connective trail between the hills and river is a priority. So that's obviously between what the state government's proposed and what the council have put forward, but believe, as was proposed by council, this can be achieved through much more modest acquisition of private property and facilitated through existing development processes and protocols. To this end, I'm proposing that recommendation 5 under agenda item 10.3 be amended to include council prioritising a significant reduction to the impact on private properties with the aim of not impacting established homes where at all possible. This can be incorporated into the existing recommendation that council work with the state government to optimise the structure and location of the parklands. Finally, I'd like to thank Jack Tarzanos and his team for being very open and helpful last week discussing this matter. That's everything. Appreciate your time. And
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? No.
Cool.
Thank you. Thank you. you've got a question?
Yeah, just a question to staff, I guess. I'm just looking for some staff opinion, I guess, on where if that phrasing were to be adopted, where that sort of sits with where the submission's at. Is it reflective of what's currently in there? Does it just strengthen it, or does it change it? What's staff's view on that?
So through the chair, the submission detail definitely covers that aspect that Mr Mano's talked about around the need to consider residential properties and ensuring that we optimise solutions for those areas, and also pushing our alignment with the Southern Rural Areas work that Council's already done, which is different in terms of parkland extent, as Mr Mano's acknowledged. Council staff opinion is that the current item 5 actually covers Mr Mano's request in the terminology around optimising that structure, and it will be part of that investigation. So from our perspective, we believe it's covered already without the additional words.
Thank you. Okay, right. We're moving on to, you've got another question?
A quick question for Ms Stormer, if I can.
Yeah.
First I'll ask a question of staff. I guess I'm just seeking some clarification about how that was, the modes in which that was put out to community consultation for the community plan. Yep.
Can you turn your...
Sorry.
There you go.
So through the chair, there was an extensive community engagement process with the community plan. It actually kicked off in July 2023. It underwent the discover phase in the latter half of 2023 and the validate stage in the central part of 24, and then a final few weeks, approximately a month, on the design elements. It was shared across local media, so the Bunyip, there was advertisements in the Bunyip. We also had posts on our Facebook page, our website. We also had drop-in sessions, which Ms Stormer attended one of those. We also shared it with the Gawler Business Development Group, who provides that information direct email to all businesses within Gawler on their database, and that was shared at each of those engagement points through to the local businesses. We had posters and flyers up at our customer service points of council and our council facilities as well throughout all three of those engagement processes, so it was an extensive engagement. Oh, sorry, thank you, Councillor Hendersley. Yes, we also had notices in our rates notice inserts.
Thank you. You've got another question? You've asked 3 questions. Yes. Yeah, yeah. If you'd like to ask a question to Ms Stormer.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
I guess it's slightly away from the consultation part, but I guess in regard to the Gawler Business Development Group, or Business Gawler, do you think that they have potentially more of a role to play, and what role would you like to see them play in terms of advocating on behalf of businesses, but also sharing that information with businesses that are in the town?
Just turn the microphone on.
All right. Okay, so having attended the last 2 meetings with the intention potentially of joining the board on the business development, I've discovered that my email address isn't actually on their mailing list, so hence I didn't get any of that notification, and I've not received any information about any of the events they've ever done. I just assumed there was not a great deal happening, because the only contact I've ever had has been a phone call. I've returned the phone call, and then effectively it doesn't go back. Nothing else happens as a result of that. I would think, from what I've seen of the meetings within the Gawler Business Development, there is a lot of talk about what we can do in the way of, say, maybe having some kind of a seminar to help educate business owners on various things that may improve their business. I see what also needs definitely to be taken is we need to promote Gawler. Gawler is a fabulous town for people to visit. There's beautiful environment, lovely scenery, lots of history, fantastic buildings. We also have down our main street there's a couple of things that really make Gawler stand out. One is we have 5 pubs in our main street. We have multiple coffee shops. There's oodles of places to eat and drink. Quality food, very few of those places are duds that you wouldn't go back to a second time. That needs to be known, but good pubs are everywhere, all right? So that's not necessarily fantastic, but it's all within a walking distance. What we also have in Gawler that very few other places have is a multitude of clothing stores. Now, I know I'm beating my own drum here, but you go to lots of other towns, country towns, unless you're going to a shopping centre, you won't get 2 menswear stores, 2 ladies stores, 2 shoe stores, 4 ladies stores. You have the recycled clothing. You have, that's without the chain stores such as Target, Big W, and then you've also got a sports store. You have an opportunity to promote Gawler as being a place to come. I hear it every single day, ladies saying, I've got nowhere to go to buy something. I hear you on the radio. I'm spending $2,000 a month on radio advertising to promote Gawler. And I had the option of changing the business name and keeping it as Leslie's Boutique or Leslie's something. But I chose to do Leslie's of Gawler because I want people to know about Gawler. I want them to come to Gawler. Gawler is 45 minutes on the train, half an hour on the expressway. I have people come in every single day because they heard the ad on radio. And those people bring in money and then they tell their friends. We are failing substantially in promoting Gawler as a place to visit, but when they get here, there's it's fine if they come by train, that's easy, but it's a horror show for parking because there's 2-hour parking in the main street and it's a long main street. If you're exploring it, you'll get a parking ticket. If you're looking for somewhere where you can park longer than 3 hours without a parking ticket, you're struggling for that. You have such an abundance of traffic that a lot of people choose not to come back because it's awkward. Their driving skills aren't up to reverse parking in a main street. So, but we have an opportunity to take on, and I think we really need to have someone who's very, very dedicated to the promotion of Gawler and assisting those businesses who will provide jobs for your grandchildren. And if we do not do that, what will happen is Westfield will take up that option on a shopping centre at Roseworthy, and that whole main street will become Monday to Friday 9 to 5 businesses. As it is, you can walk down that street on a Saturday afternoon and you won't see a single person. We're reverting back to 1970s trading hours because there's not enough people, even in Gawler, who come shopping in the main street. So we're doing something really badly wrong. And I think you really need to have a consultation with the people who have businesses and are directly impacted by what's going on in Gawler. So consultation, I know the gentleman said that you have all these things on your Facebook page or your own website. I'm not on your website page. I'm trying to run a business. How hard would it have been to have slipped a leaflet under the door? And suddenly realising or discovering I'm not on the mailing list for the business development because my business name has changed to the previous owner. Consequently, I'm not getting anything from them. So I didn't know anything about it until the lady dropped in and spoke to me, and then the gentleman dropped in and came up with the paperwork. That's the first I knew about it. But to not have a date when submissions were required by, that's a major failure. Because I was more than happy to write something, but discovered I was already late for it. So hence I went to my drop-in session, but there was only 2 of us there. There was no notification that was of any value to people that there was a drop-in session. There were 2 A4 pieces of paper stuck on a railing. There's no foot traffic in Gawler after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So who was going to see that if that gets put there at 4:30? That should have been an A-frame sitting out the front of the front door here for 2 weeks so that people understood what was going on and they would then be interested enough to say, have your say. All that signage, a lot of it's just crap that we see, excuse the blunt, but rubbish that we see year after year that people aren't even paying attention to. What a perfect opportunity that was to say, have your say about Gawler, because I can guarantee you, everyone driving down that street's got an opinion. So I think we need to do a much, much better job, but you need to be aware that people in the main street, their businesses are struggling, really struggling to stay functional, and within a year's time, unless there's a really concerted effort to help us, half of those businesses will close. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? No. So I think declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest, councillors? Yes, Paul Kosh.
In the item to do with the tree management plan, it references a number of MIS documents. My business, I didn't actually write any of those MISs, but our business actually did edit one of those MISs, and I'll just declare a general conflict.
A general conflict?
Yeah, and I'll fill the paperwork out because,
Yep.
yeah, I didn't actually write any of those actual MISs. I wrote others, but not specifically those.
Councillor Kosh.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any other declarations of interest? No. Adjourned items, nil. So we move on to petitions. 7.1, request to remove council street trees. Susie Reichstein, you wrote this report. Do you want to make some comment? Oh, Wendy. There you go. Who's got? There you go. No?
There we are,
There you go.
through.
There
So
you go.
through the chair, yes, we received this petition via post.
Yeah.
We have written a letter back to the author, thanking them for their petition, letting them know it would be presented tonight. We did provide details of how they could also provide a deputation if they wanted to.
Yeah.
I think particularly in light of the fact that our tree management plan is up for adoption tonight, and that clearly states the criteria that we are required to consider as part of any tree removal request, that this request is not one that would be lightly agreed upon. My suggestion was that we actually come back with a report once the tree management plan is adopted, and so we can relate it back to the policy, so that there is transparency in the advice that we will provide back to those residents.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Karen. I'm happy to move this motion. I've been and had a look at the situation and happy with what the Executive Manager of Infrastructure, Wendy, has said here, but I just don't like the idea of it hanging around for a while. I mean, this can be done straight away or as soon as staff are available.
Yeah.
One of the persons, John Arnold, who was the Mayor of Mildura, is certainly a person that loves living in Gawler now, as Joanne does, and I'd like to see this done as soon as possible, so I'm happy to move this motion.
Do I have a seconder? Seconder, Councillor Ballalonga. Thank you. Any questions? Any comments?
Just to clarify, so this is just receiving the petition, and then
Yeah.
there's nothing needed in the motion to have staff bring it back to IES. That will just happen naturally. Okay.
That will happen naturally.
So just for clarification, yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. So, Gawler Community Plan 235. Hey? Oh, sorry. Where are we? Oh, confirmation of the minutes. Confirmation of minutes, where I don't have any minutes here. I don't have any minutes here. I don't have any minutes here.
It's the minutes from the
September meeting, okay. So that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on 24th of September 2024 be confirmed as a true and correct record. Do you want to move that, Councillor Hennessy? And Councillor Samble has seconded it. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Okay, right. Business arising from minutes, nil. Decision reports. So decision reports, Gawler Community Plan 235. We have an officer's recommendation here that council, can you read that out?
Certainly, through the Mayor. So the recommendation is that Council adopts the draft Gawler Community Plan 2035 as contained in Attachment 1 and authorises the Acting Chief Executive Officer to make editorial changes to the draft Gawler Community Plan 2035 as contained in Attachment 1 prior to the plan being published on the Council's website.
Do you want to move that way?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I will. Just one small point, though. I would suggest on page 44 and 45 that the names of the elected members be added, and the fact that they are the reign that we're in, the 22 to 24. Just for clarity, I think that was a point that was brought up in one of the submissions. I think that's a worthwhile addition. But I think there's been a lot of work. I'm very happy with the final outcome, and I look forward to it being published. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Vallelonga, thank you. Councillor Vallelonga has seconded the motion. Any discussion? I'll go to Councillor Samble and then I'll go to Councillor Solomon and no, not yet. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Karen. I am very concerned. We have a very important meeting, as you've heard from ex-councillor Shackley, and very passionate person about this town and its heritage and the way forward. And we're asked to move a motion tonight to adopt the draft plan. We have a brand new CEO starting off in a few weeks. Why do we have to approve this now? And our new CEO is going to come in and he's going to say, well, you people have already approved this, so I'll try and do the best I can along the line. And it's authorising David or whoever to sign their name with this. I just don't know. I don't feel comfortable in voting for this when so close we have a brand new CEO coming in with the staff have already put together a fantastic plan. It's great. Tomorrow, we hope everybody will go to this meeting and Councillor Shackley will have to buy too many drinks. He won't want another meeting and that sort of stuff. But the people now know what's going on and they're now putting their head in and saying, yeah, that's good, that's not good. We heard Joe tonight, we heard Corinna say about different things that are happening that are quite relevant about the future plan we move forward. I just don't feel comfortable. I wonder what other elected members feel.
Councillor Solomon.
Thank you, Mayor, and perhaps I might be able to address some of the concerns raised by Councillor Samble there. But I think it would be certainly odd if a CEO came in and, of course, the strategic direction, and we talk about in the leadership chapter of this, is the responsibility of council and those who have been elected. Of course, staff have put a lot of time into this. I would find it odd if a CEO came in and decided not to listen to any of the staff that we have. I think that would be a bad CEO. Perhaps, of course, the most important component of this, which is the community, if a CEO was to come in and completely dismiss that, I think that would be a shame as well. In terms of the consultation, of course, it's always a challenge to get. It's always a challenge, and it's something we can do better. I think we do it better now than we did a few years ago, but there is still way to go on how we consult. That being said, I think that a lot of the submissions were very worthwhile, and we know that this is an important plan. It's not just, and it's not just something that I talk to residents about when we've got a consultation on. I talk about it throughout. I mean, we saw the importance of that in the discussion around the Vidulness site as well, and the important role which this played in a really contentious planning issue, and how the values that we articulated here came into that. And when I talk to those people as well, as an elected member, that's what I bring into the chamber with my decision making, is their views about what is actually important to our community. Now, you know, whether those same people have gone and made a submission in here or not, that their views on that have still been brought into the chamber by virtue of the fact that they have come and talked to one of their elected members. So I think from my point of view, I'm quite comfortable with passing this tonight on that basis. But also just wanted to go back and emphasise the importance of this document and what exactly it says about our organisation and our town, because as we have seen with other planning matters, it can be an important document on defining what our guiding principles are. And it's something which as well, I hope finds that same significance with the conversation we're having later with the GARP as well, where we're actually making sure, you know, we have, I think, our staff have done a good job of making sure that our submission actually aligns with, you know, our values which we've articulated here. We've seen this come some way, and I think it's come to be quite a good document, and it's certainly less. It certainly has less words in it than before. Yes. That obviously didn't mean a whole lot, and I think that it's a bit more direct, but it has captured what it needs to capture.
Thank you. Any other discussion, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, look, I'm happy to support this. The community plan is because we're approving many plans, that's why we have 1,500 pages of attachments or whatever. But this particular... 1,400 pages of attachment. But this particular plan is just the overarch. It's not going into the details. It's giving the dot point level. We want to, you know, a town that we're proud of. We want to advocate for, you know, commercial space and that sort of thing, just at the high level. And then when we get into these later, you know, the transport strategy and all that sort of thing, that's where we're getting into the nitty-gritty of, you know, what do we need to do specifically with roads and all that sort of thing. This is just a more general, this is what the community believes are sort of the 5 pillars of, you know, of what we want. And I think we've done a good job in sort of nailing that down, so I'm happy to support it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Hennessy, you can wrap up the debate. So you want me to put the motion? The debate is closed. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. 10.2, Gawler Integrated Transport Strategy 246 Final Report. A presentation will not be provided. However, James Parrott from SMEC will be attending and can answer any questions as required. Would you like to come up to the... Yes, Councillor Kosh. Would you like... there you go.
Oh, thanks, Mayor. Through the Mayor.
Yes.
I was very pleased to see in the report referencing Sunnydale Avenue. Could you just give the council some rationale behind your thoughts behind Sunnydale Avenue and potentially a link further east on Lux Road?
Thank you.
Thank you. In terms of a selection of routes, we obviously were looking to try and find a range of routes to test. As we mentioned, we didn't particularly want to advocate for one or the other. The most obvious route at the moment is Cheek Avenue. Sunnydale's probably the most obvious direct existing route outside of that, and that's why it was chosen, and also because of the information that HIPDO provided us around the development of Concordia. It actually aligned a little bit with where the sort of the centre of their employment could be. And then we obviously looked at routes to the east and essentially looked at a section of land which was part of the development for Concordia, which we thought may be a better location than going further east, where we started to think there would be issues around people's willingness to travel and use that route and the effectiveness, which would then potentially bias the results to say that roads like Sunnydale and Cheek would be more preferential. And so that's why we tried to pick a range, and obviously with the report you'll see we went through a combination where we looked at look at what happened with Cheek, and then with 2, and then with 3. And really the idea was to help council understand what the potential impacts could be, because obviously the planning is currently underway, and to that extent it's obviously not settled. And so for us, we saw our responsibility to provide council with information so that you would be informed to be able to make a position to put forward to obviously the state government in terms of how you'd like to see Concordia connected through to Schoenberg Drive in particular.
Does that answer your question? Yes, thank you. Any other questions for James Parrott from SMEC? Any other questions? No? I'm looking at the officer's recommendation, and I'd like a mover and a seconder. Would you like to move it? Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, this is a very important document. This is a very important document to our Main Street businesses, actually, because a lot of our problems with the Main Street are to do with traffic. There is at peak times there is traffic congested up through the Main Street, but a lot of those people are not there to use our businesses on the Main Street. There's trucks coming through the Lyndoch Road intersection and all sorts of things happening, clogging up the traffic. And it was really great to see some maps of what are the impacts, because this area is growing fast, and this is an area that will be deeply impacted, when, and it's a when, not if, the population in the local area doubles. And so that's going to have a big effect, yes, on places like our Main Street, and we need to figure out how to best do our own local traffic, but also having the data to be able to tell the state government, this isn't just our opinion that we need a bypass or that we need, this or that. It is... here's the data, so I'm happy to support this.
Councillor Hennessy and then Councillor Vallelonga.
I'm happy to second this. I concur completely with Deputy Mayor's comments. I think the amount of detail...
So I'll just get you seconding it.
Yep.
Councillor Hennessy. No. Deputy Mayor moved the motion and Councillor Hennessy seconded it.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
It provides sufficient detail that we've got some evidence-based, and I think with the planning that's coming towards us, particularly working with the state government, I think the evidence is now there. The detail, it is absolutely loaded with detail. It's sometimes, from an outsider, it might be quite dense to read, but I think even a quick skim through will do, as the Deputy Mayor says, show that we take the Main Street and other areas of congestion around the town. The issues there have been identified, and some possible solutions are now proposed. So happy to second it.
I'll go to Councillor Vallelonga. Oh, you were going to second it. Councillor Koch.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Look, I actually enjoyed reading it. A lot of detailed information, and it provided some clarity for me over a number of points that I was happy to see. It's interesting that with the development, we do need this infrastructure, and we need it in place potentially before the houses go in, not just an agreement that is going to be a trigger point that something will happen. It needs to go in beforehand. I mean, it's quite explicit about the need for the north-east bypass, an east-west connection. The question is, how do you get over the railway lines? I'm concerned. Obviously, you could do a grade separation through Cuddler, but when you come to Murray Street and Edith, I'm not sure how you do that. It may not even be feasible to have a connection once you consider if you have to have a separation of grades at those two crossings. So it's a bit of an issue, but it's good to have all that information in place, and it's good research, and it's solid research, and it does really outline the issues, and it is good ammunition to go to the state government when we look at the GARP, which these other items actually all linking together. that we really need that infrastructure in place. Otherwise, you will end up like, for example, Mount Barker, where the roads don't link up.
No,
I mean, nobody wants
they
that
don't
again.
link up. They don't
Yeah,
link up.
and
No.
we've had representations from government saying that that won't happen again, and I take them on their word that that won't happen
They
again.
are investing in the hills, actually.
They are now,
They
hopefully,
are,
but yeah. But, I mean, I was up there the other week, and it's a little bit of the amount of freight going through the main street's incredible. But anyway, I've taken, I accept what they said when they came here into the chamber and said they wouldn't be a repeat of Mount Barker, and it would be different. So we've now got the evidence, and we can give it to them and say this is the infrastructure we need. So I'm quite happy to support this. Thank you.
Any other discussion? I'll go to Councillor Vallelonga.
While we're on that,
Yeah.
we built Schimmelpenninck Road, whatever they call it, new one, and they put a roundabout on Potts Road.
Yeah.
Is there any talk of actually finishing it off and getting it onto Tiver Road?
James Parrott, if you'd like to respond to that question, thank you.
Thank you. As part of the analysis, we broke up the Gawler transport network into a series of stages, and obviously one of them was around the connectivity for what we sort of regarded as the third north-south link. So at the moment we sort of said Gawler bypass is one of your north-south links, Main North Road through Murray Street is one of your north-south links, and then the third north-south link would effectively be a connection from Sturt Highway through Concordia, through Schoenberg Drive down to Potts Road, and then the question was, what do we do from there? And so what we undertook was an assessment of possible options, which was to look at an extension to Tiver or to look at a duplication of Main North Road. With respect to some of the constraints that would go around some of the services that run along the Bentley Road connection potential, there's obviously further investigation that would be needed there to work out the viability, the economic viability. But in terms of the modelling itself, which we undertook, it indicated that there is a local connection element that's required, and that there would be benefit in some sort of connection, whether that is the connection through to Tiver via Bentley, or whether that might be Main North Road being duplicated from Potts all the way down to Trinity, and then tying into Main North Road. One of the other things we did also look at was it highlights a movement and a desire, and it's about connecting communities. And so what it did say is even if there isn't a road connection on the Bentley Road sort of link, that there is a desire for the community to move north and south of sort of Trinity College, and that even if you didn't do a road link, maybe a shared path or something like that would be beneficial as well. Does that help you?
Does that answer your question, Jim?
I guess the answer would be in terms of should you do that connection, you need to do a planning study if you wanted to do it in detail, or at least do some sort of initial assessment around the cost implications, because we obviously know there are services that run gas, it's the sea gas pipe and that runs up and down there, and then obviously would be potentially significant costs with that, plus bridge connections as well. So,
you've got another question? Yeah, supplementary. Yep. There you go.
They built Gordon Road and for 200 metres after Tiver Road, and they built the lights there for that reason, to join onto Tiver Road to Bentley Road. It doesn't seem to be talking about it.
Yes, that was obviously constructed several years ago now, and it obviously hasn't actually gone any further. That was obviously not part of what we looked at in terms of that was a state government decision several years ago now. And yes, through previous work that I've undertaken, yes, the state government has looked at connections through to Tiver, obviously, but it obviously comes down to the current state government and their planning initiatives, of which I can't comment on at the moment, but it's worth asking a question to the department, obviously, to ask them if this is actually a potentially live project and what are their intentions around how to complete what I would regard as the third or the eastern north-south link for Gawler, of which I regard the bypass to be probably the most critical piece of infrastructure for Gawler at the moment, because it obviously has a massive implication around how much traffic from Concordia comes through. So but the Tiver section or the Bentley Road section is definitely important, but it's about, there are possibilities in terms of how you do that.
Councillor Solomon.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this plan is, and I've said it before, one which, when we talk about roads and transport, can some people can get a bit bored, but what it fundamentally is also a plan about how we connect our town and how we connect people within our town to where they want to go and what they want to do. And I think that's a really exciting and important thing to have, because it means, as we've heard a bit about tonight, it can mean the life and death of businesses. I mean, if you can't cross, if you have a main street, of course you want people to visit there, but at the same time you don't want it to be impossible to cross so that no one ends up going there and people completely bypass it to go down somewhere much further away and much further south, just so that they don't have to deal with the traffic and parking situation there. So I think it's important in that respect, but also making sure that everyone in our town is well connected. And of course I always turn back to that those public transport aspects which are in there as well. And echo what Councillor Koch said about having infrastructure there prior to a lot of this development happening, because when we recognise the infrastructure that's required and deliver it prior to the development occurring, people know that they're moving into a development with that access, and people who want to be able to access that service will move in there and they'll use it from the onset. If you put it in afterwards, of course the uptake of that public transport service will be lower, because people have become accustomed to driving. That puts more cars on the road, that's more accidents, that's more traffic, all of the things that public transport does a really good job at avoiding. So it's good to have that in there, and of course to talk about those two grade separations, acknowledging that may be challenging as well, and some of the challenges that exist around the changes that might be made to the railway line. But also recognising, especially with the Cuddler one, it's a very important potential safety feature of that as well for drivers, and for train drivers, for truck drivers, and for, of course, cars on the road as well. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Deputy Mayor Cody Davies, can you wrap up the debate?
Yeah, look, just to say that, this is getting this infrastructure in before the housing, as everyone said, is very important for a lot of reasons. My understanding is that Roseworthy definitely won't be getting 100,000 houses anytime soon, because I don't know that they have the water pressure for the housing that they've already built. So you really need to get this stuff in. When people get a reliance on cars, this happened when the train line was down for about 2 years for electrification, or seemingly 2 years. Everyone left the train because instead of 45 minutes into the city, it was about 2 hours by the winding route. And so people got used to driving, and then there's just never been that level of take-up again on the train after that. So if you want people to use the public transport, and we do, because it simplifies a lot of things when it comes to car parking spaces and all of that take up a lot of space and time and energy that we have to deal with. We need to have all that ready up front.
Thank you. The debate is now closed. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. So 10.3, Greater Adelaide Regional Plan. Officer's recommendation. Who would like to move that way? Are you happy to move that way? Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to move that way as well. I guess just looking to staff quickly with a question in terms of strengthening the need to ensure that, how do I put it gently, no one we're emphasising to the state government we don't want people to be screwed over as part of their part, to put it bluntly, as part of their,
No, we
as
don't
part
want
of
to be
their,
screwed over. We
yeah,
don't
as
want to
part
be
of
screwed
that,
over.
is there something which we can add to point 5 to strengthen that, or is that just feedback which is going to definitely be taken on board?
Can you turn your mic off? Thank you.
So through the chair, it is within the detail of the submission in behind it in terms of working with the state government to ensure that the delivery of the Northern Parklands is optimised in terms of that structure, and acknowledging council's response in this space around the Southern Rural Areas discussion paper is a divergent view to the state government's GARP. Our position is that the areas in question remain as that deferred urban, and we will create green space linkages through normal orderly development and the requirement to provide 12.5% open space within new developments. So that is the strength of our submission in the back end. So we believe that it's there enough. We will be actively involved in the structure planning with the state government and the City of Playford over that duration beyond GARP. And over the subsequent 18 months. So we believe we have that covered, Councillor Solomon.
Thank you. Are you happy to move that way? Are you happy to speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to move that way into... did Councillor Lorna have a question? Sorry, is that...
Have you got a question?
I do have a question. Thanks.
Yes,
Excellent.
Thank
so
you.
just on point 5, it seems we're skirting around a little bit about the compulsory acquisition of land. So what's our hesitation on making that a little bit more clearer, that we want to work with the state government, but want to really take into the concerns of the local residents about the acquisition of land? What's our hesitation of putting something in those lines?
David?
So through the chair, the fact is that this is a draft plan, so we don't actually know where the land is that's going to be the final Northern Parklands. It's an indicative line on the map that we are advocating for change in that location and advocating for change in the way the current GARP is issued as a draft. We won't know until the final GARP is delivered and the structure planning occurs beyond that what land is actually going to be needed to be compulsory acquired by the state government. So it is somewhat premature from a staff perspective because the final document has not been provided at this point.
Another question?
Yeah, it's based on the same thing though. So if we're going through as a draft presentation, why aren't we making that known from the get-go? I don't understand why we wouldn't say that we want to take that into account about, you know, we've got people out there been there 50, 60 plus years sort of thing, that we are actually looking at it at this point as a draft as we're setting it forwards.
Okay. Would you like to comment?
So through the chair, and that is exactly our response around the Southern Rural Areas discussion paper. We have a completely different view as council, and that compulsory acquisition component does not exist in our proposition that we're providing as our submission.
Does that address your question? Yeah, thank you. Councillor Koch?
Yeah, look, it's a question to the acting CEO.
Yes.
Through you, Mayor. Councillor, Mr Shackley raised a point about employment land in the draft, and he said it never went to community consultation, but we're now including it. Have you got a comment about that?
So through the chair, the draft GARP has significantly less employment land in the southern rural areas than the council's discussion paper. As a response to that, council staff have been working through what further investigations may be required, and that's why it's listed in the further investigation section. Our proposal back is our submission on southern rural areas. So we are going to government saying this is what our council believes should be in that southern area. We need to have an investigation around employment lands. If the GARP says we're going to reduce the extent of employment lands on Hales Road, as it has, we need to find additional employment lands somewhere in that region. So this concept was developed as a way to show that there are other possibilities within that southern area that have access to main networks, road networks, And apologies for the typo in the report. The actual attachment says near the Northern Expressway, not Sturt Highway. So the submission document says near the Northern Expressway, which is the correct location. So that's what it is. It's about a concept for further investigation because the submission from Council is the Southern Rural Areas discussion paper and the Gawler Growth Framework that has been extensively consulted on and was adopted by Council at its last meeting.
Thank you. I think that addresses your question. Any other questions?
Just quickly before I...
We need a seconder. We need a seconder. Councillor Ballalonga, thank you.
Just quickly before I speak, so if we were to add a part in there...
I'm just going to
clarifying,
add Councillor Ballalonga, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
If we were to add a part in there which says that it just makes it clear that we are taking a position that the wholesale compulsory acquisition of people's land as part of, to develop a parklands is in conflict with our growth framework. Is that something, wording that could be added to that effect?
David? There you go.
So through the chair, we could add it as an additional point, not as an adjunct to an existing, if members were of the mind to vary the motion that's been moved and seconded. But we still believe that it is very well demonstrated in the detail behind and our submission.
Thank you.
In that case, I might try this out with the chamber then, if it's possible to, if I seek leave to add another point, which I'm hoping from what the information we've received is consistent with our submission, that says that that something to the effect of that the wholesale acquisition of private land for the purpose of creating the Adelaide Parklands is in conflict with Town of Gawler's growth framework, stating it as a fact, but making it known to our community, and that's what we're communicating that we're submitting to state government. That's my...
So you're varying the motion. You're varying the motion.
I'm seeking leave to, yep.
Position. Can we not use GARP? Greater Adelaide Regional Plan. Greater Adelaide Regional Plan. Yeah, yeah. Can we use Greater Adelaide Regional Plan? Thank you.
maybe if you just can say the northern parkland, just not indefinitely parklands forever, just...
For the purposes of parklands as outlined, northern parklands as outlined in the draft Greater Adelaide Regional Plan as it is in direct conflict with the Gawler Growth Framework. Okay, Councillor Vallelonga, are you in agreement with, can we just move it up? Can we just move it up? Opposes the wholesale compulsory acquisition of land for the purposes of the Northern Parklands as outlined in the draft Greater Adelaide Regional Plan as it is in direct conflict with the Gawler Growth Framework. Are you happy with that? Thank you. Fantastic.
Do I still need to seek leave of the
chamber?
Yeah,
we do need to seek leave of the chamber. So all those in favour of... Fantastic.
Thanks.
Great.
Yes, thanks for that detour, everyone. Happy to speak to it now. I think, of course, the Gawler Growth Framework, spoken at length about that, don't need to go into too much detail about it again, but that's a plan which we had a really large amount of community input into, and we designed that with the best intentions to fit into the goals which the state government was trying to achieve. I think that our submission is certainly nuanced in the sense that it acknowledges that there is a need for more open space, but the way to achieve that is not necessarily just to draw a line on a map from, from one side of Gawler, from the hill face to the river, and go, yeah, that'll do, that's our parkland. But also that the way, there are options which are available to state government to still achieve that, and we can work with them on that. And those options don't necessarily involve the wholesale acquisition of people's land from the onset. There are development mechanisms which can be used, and of course we know that new developments do require a certain amount of green space, and that can be put into deeds, and of course the state government has all of the powers and all of the levers to mandate that that occurs, and there are fair and equitable ways which they could seek to achieve that continuous parkland from the hills to up to the Gawler River, should they need to. Generally though, I think our submission is good in the sense that it recognises those really strong points which were talked about earlier in our community plan, and that's that we are a uniquely identifiable township. We are separate from Playford, and we make that abundantly clear, that Cuddler will not serve as a master planned extension to Manapara and Blakeview, as was put in the original, in the draft GARP. That's a very important thing. And when I speak to residents in that southern area there, in Cuddler, they are certainly not in favour of becoming part of Manapara, and a lot of them value having acreage, not quite as big and unmanageable as it currently is, but they do certainly value that. I think it's also good we've started to define what that greenbelt and that physical separation actually looks like in there. We've taken into account other matters. We talked about employment land, potential industrial land in there as well. That's something which came through strongly in the consultation on the Gawler Growth Framework. Well, I acknowledge the concern that was brought tonight by Mr. Shackley around that graphic which features in the report. I think when we talk about these things with the community, we don't necessarily talk about it on a property by property level. We talk about them quite generally, and if we are able to keep that principle of physical separation, which is important to so many people in the town, once again, to be blunt, that land down there, unless the landowners have a problem with it, whose business is it if it maintains that physical separation which the other people value? We do need more employment land. We know that's there. We've found some ideal, we've found potential things which we can try out, and I don't think that it has actually set anything in stone in terms of this is where we're going to put employment land, but it's a proposal which we can then, which we're endorsing as a council to say, you know, to our staff, we're enabling you to take this to state government to have the conversations that need to be had when we get to the structure planning phase, where it goes down into that level of detail there. Also, we know that the state government's plan for Hillier is completely different to the one in the Gawler Growth Framework. We have motions acknowledging the complexity of that particular area. I think that affording that flexibility, but also acknowledging what our community has said about the need for jobs and the lack of jobs in the outer north is really important, but also take the point, it's not the Sturt Highway, but it does go onto the Northern Expressway and Horrocks Highway there. And it is a link to a major arterial road, which can have large amounts of traffic, which is not coming from somewhere else in the town, which we've discussed earlier tonight. If we can avoid freight moving through the middle of the town, it's optimal. And so I think that it strikes a good balance in there and enabling staff to actually take that, have the conversations that need to be had. And when we say, look, you haven't supplied enough employment land in your plan, you know, and the state government turns around and says, oh, well, where are we going to put it then? We can't find anywhere. We actually do have a solution to that, because we need to be in the business of offering solutions rather than just coming to them with problems. And I think this has been something which has been really well done by staff. It's been worked on for a long time, and so I'm happy to support this with, of course, that extra assurance to our community that should they find themselves in that parkland, we're going to be advocating for them, and we're going to be saying you should receive.
You've gone past your 5 minutes. Thank you. Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Koch?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. It is a shame that our proposal is completely different to the GARP, but what we're actually providing, it will be a lot of negotiation, I hope, between us and the government. And in particular, in the report, it does talk about horticulture, actually doing some more investigations in the horticulture area. And when I read the opinion report, the analysis that was done, and in executive summary, it actually says the opinion advisory was engaged by the town of Gawler to investigate the sustainability of future primary production with respect to water supply for Hillier-Cuddler area. The investigation found there was sufficient recycled water in the general area to supply Hillier and Cuddler with demand of an estimated 2,435 megalitres per year. The water would be available from Bolivar on the NACE scheme, and as such would provide a climate-resilient water source to expand horticulture close to Adelaide. Now, if you want employment, get some horticulture. I mean, I've been in the industry for close to 50 years. There's a lot of employment in horticulture, and as I've said it over and over and over, there are new crops coming through that would be absolutely suited to this area. There are close to 600 native foods in Australia that a lot of First Nation people and businesses are working on. Now, I think that would be an absolute boom for our community to look at those crops, 600 native foods. Now, that's solvent foods, and that's very, very important. So I'm quite happy to support this now. I didn't support the last one, but I would be supporting this one mainly because I've seen the draft. I'm not happy with it, and this is some way of potentially getting some good outcomes for our community. So I'll be supporting this submission. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, Councillor Warner.
Mick's fine.
Yeah, Mick.
Yeah, I'm in support of this as well, and thanks, Councillor Solomon, for probably picking up what I was putting down to give a bit more reassurances to the community. You know, I don't think was a great movie out there, The Castle. Tell them to get stuffed, you know. So, you know, I just want to make sure that, you know, the council knows, the staff knows that you've done a brilliant job with this, really, and I'm, you know, very supportive of it. There's a lot of room and a lot of discussions to go forwards, and we've got the framework in place here, and yep, so I'm pretty happy to support this now, so thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Solomon, you can wrap up the debate.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make it short because I obviously spoke
Yes.
over the last time.
Yes.
But just to, I think, respect, of course, what Councillor Koch is saying, that, and you know, I, of course, disagree with the viability, especially of the gneiss and what it does to salinity of the soil, etc. But I think that it is a well-made point by Councillor Koch that despite the differences of opinion which we may have around Hillier and Cudler, that we need to really push for the state government to protect what has been articulated as being very important to the people in our town, and so together we can move forward and say to them that this is that this is what our expectations are, and that we've consulted with our community, and that they need to listen to that, but also at the same time offer solutions for how they can reach their goals at the same time as respecting the wishes of our community. So with that, I'm happy for the motion to be put.
Thank you. The debate is now closed. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Town of Gawler Annual Report 223-24, and I'm on page 40 of 95. Town of Gawler Annual Report 223-24. Are you happy to move that way, Helen? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm happy to move this, the recommendations. However, I would ask for one minor change, please. On page 137, when we're talking about the Lions Club Infrastructure Initiative, somebody has described it as the 5th Street Playground. To the rest of Gawler, it's known as the Adelaide Road Playground. This is the second time. We need to make sure that we use the language that the community knows are playgrounds. So could that please be changed? Other than that, I'm happy to move it. It's an excellent piece of work and a great snapshot looking back of what we've achieved.
Wendy? Are you happy to adjust that?
Yep, through the chair, happy to adjust it. Yep.
Thank you, thank you. Right, Councillor Hennessy, do I have a seconder? Oh, yes, thank you, Councillor Lorna. Do you want to speak? Thank you.
Yeah, I just had my own minor amendment to make, but maybe it should say moved as amended since we're making changes to it, but but yeah, so just on page 536, the attachments, it says that Councillor Solomon is the presiding member of the Infrastructure Committee, and it is Councillor White who's the presiding member. So
yeah, it's Councillor White. Yeah, thank you.
Through the chair, Councillor Solomon was for a period of 23-24 because the changeover happens in November. Oh, it was Councillor Davies. Sorry, my mistake. We'll update that. I knew there was a changeover, so there needed to be two listed, so it was yourself and then Councillor White. That's right. Yep, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for that pick up. Okay, so we've got a mover and a seconder. Any other discussion? Councillor Hennessy, are you happy for me to put that motion? The debate is now closed. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Drain 10.7. Now. Goodness me. Smith Creek 10.5. Smith Creek Stormwater Management Plans Community Engagement. you want to move that way?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I do. I've got a couple of questions. One is, it's interesting to note, I actually think this has actually come to us at an excellent time, actually. It fits so well into all the other things that we've discussed tonight. There is a few things that we have which are spelled out in the report, like some budget implications and the impact on our long-term financial plan, but we will get to that. I guess my two questions are, one is, what was the delay in getting this coming forward? And the second one is, on page 48, there's an abbreviation of WSUD. I'm sorry, I looked, I couldn't find out what it meant.
Where's
Page
that?
48.
48.
WSUD. Thank you. I've just had it. I've had it explained to me, but for those of us who are not as familiar as Councillor Koch, thank you for that. It would be useful to have that. So maybe from staff, an explanation of the delay.
Okay, thank you. Are you going to answer
I'll take that one,
Wendy?
Yep, so through the chair, I think that's a very good question, Councillor Hennessy. So the initial delay in this was actually purely a resourcing thing. The staff member from Gawler who was running this left our organisation, and I'm afraid we were very, very, very short-staffed for a period there. By the time I returned to get this on my agenda and get it moving, the reality was the Southern Rural Areas investigations were well underway. Gawler Growth Framework was sort of coming up on the horizon, and given that this does have an interface with those, I actually wanted to hold this back and see where some of those went. The influence of GARP and its overlay now has actually, I guess...
Welcome, Councillor Hughes.
Hello, Councillor Hughes. I think that has actually demonstrated that it was a good decision to delay it going out. Probably very frustrating, though, to the City of Playford, who had been very diligent in getting their part of the work and their consultation done in a much more timely way. And, of course, us not, Town of Gawler, not doing our consultation actually holds them up in terms of them being able... Obviously, because it crosses our boundaries, we have to both have gone through the due process. So my apologies to City of Playford, and my thanks to Sean Fielding, who's come in from City of Playford to actually help us do this, because the reality is we still don't have a stormwater member of staff. So...
No, I'll go to Councillor Koch.
I will
Councillor Koch, you've got a question?
Yeah, yes, thanks, Mayor, through you.
Yeah.
It relates to the fact that it's written around the 30-year plan and the old development plan.
Yeah.
And it talks about, for example, impervious surfaces in Cuddler. So if we looked at the draft GARP, that sort of it just paves over everything.
Yeah.
How is that going to affect the calculations and what we need to do? For example, the size of the mill node drain, the other outlet, and also the Gawler drain and the Hillier wetlands, because it might be actually more water than is envisaged in this stormwater plan.
Would you like to answer that, Wendy?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. I'll start, and if we need further clarification, I will ask Sean to come up. The reality is these stormwater management plans are still highly conceptual. While they put in indicative cross-sections for drains and indicative sizes of wetlands, the true design of those comes into the subsequent phases, and therefore the final design actually takes into account what is there on ground or what is known to be planned at that point in time. I know Playford, for example, in their planning of the stuff that they've already started to deliver, I'm sure this is where you might want to come up to the speaker, they've actually considered like the full development of their area. And so as we would go into the implementation of this in terms of real infrastructure, we would be considering what the final GARP, for example, overlay would be, so we'd make sure that it was a long-term design. Is that a good summary? Yeah.
Thank you. Subsequent question?
Throughout the document, it talks about talking to the community and landowners at the time. If the GARP is implemented as in the draft, those landowners may not be there. You just might be talking to a developer, for example. So how do we work that out? Or do we need to change it somehow?
So through the chair, that is a good question, and I guess that's always the case where you're dealing with land that may have significant changes to its zoning. I think no matter what, it is the current land ownership, given that urban planning changes to the zoning and actual implementation of change to housing density is still, 10, 30-year planning horizons. So talking to the current landowners are the right target audience for now, so that they understand. Again, part of that is about us understanding what they experience. So it's a little bit of ground truthing of what the plan presents. Because again, it's a technical thing, it's a modelling thing, so that ground truthing is always valid. And understanding then, I guess, what implication it has potentially for them in their thinking, and that then feeds back for what would then be the long-term detailed implementation. And really that's the answer to that question.
Does that address your question? Thank you. Any other discussion? We need a seconder. Councillor Koch has seconded the motion. I'll just put that up. Thank you. We've got a mover and a seconder. Any further discussion? Councillor Hennessy, you can wrap up the debate.
Thank you, Mayor. And yes, I think, as I say, as it turns out, this has been very fortuitous, as I said before. I concur with staff. Thanks to Playford for their cooperation and support in getting this through. I do note that in endorsing it to go out for community engagement, the community engagement calendar was updated. This will be, looks like one of 5 that we have out, but one of them I'm not sure that the entranceway to the Williston Cemetery has gone out for engagement at the moment. So again, it probably is the 4th thing that we've got out at the moment, seeking community feedback on. I think we've had this discussion before to make sure that we don't burn out our community in seeking endless feedback. We have to be quite strategic on that. We very much value their input, but if they're bombarded, we all get a bit weary with those things. So thank you very much for all the work done in this. I think if nothing else, I think it educates us all how much stormwater is important and how, again, it's infrastructure that needs to be done before any development is occurring, and it requires some thought and some planning and the cooperation of our community. So happy to move the motion.
The debate is now closed. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. So now we go to 10.6, Tree Management Plan, adoption of final document. Okay. Oh, Councillor Koch. Oh, you've got a general conflict.
Yeah, I want to declare a general conflict on this item. My business has written a number of MIS documents, and they're referenced in, and the MIS documents are referenced in the report. I did not write any of the MIS documents that are referenced in the report, although our business did edit one of the documents.
Okay.
So I had no input in the actual writing of any of those MIS documents. Yeah. And I will stay in the meeting and contribute to the discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it. So we've got an officer's recommendation. Who would like to move the motion? Councillor Hennessy, thank you. Who would like to second the motion? Deputy Mayor. So we've got an officer's recommendation. Councillor Hennessy, Deputy Mayor C. Davies, thank you. Do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this is an enormous amount of work and detail, and I congratulate staff for undertaking it all, putting it together in a readable and cohesive form. It's amazing, I I guess for those of us who don't deal with this on a daily basis, we do know how contentious trees can be, but how much they are valued by our community, and as this feedback said, how much people do want to be involved and co-manage some of our trees, which is excellent in terms of community development. I think this sets some really good groundwork for us to be able to move forward, and also to educate our community in how council manages this really valuable asset. So, yeah, very happy to move the motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion, Councillor Koch? I'll go to Councillor Samble. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Karen. One of the things that's been happening around our town, because of so many of the sugar gums type trees that were planted because they look good and that are now dying, their branches are dying and they're falling off. And I've had a couple of phone calls recently after the storms the other night. Is there, I'm not sure whether Hayley's here or Wendy, but when it comes to the point, well, I'll pick the one place out, Gary Ermugger's home, where the businesses, the feedlot and the car hire businesses in front, and the trees are up above it. Mm-hmm. And some of those trees have decided to just break their branches and they're hanging down. Oh, yeah. And I went around and had a look at it and I said, well, you know, I'm not sure what council can do to help because it's on private land. I just wonder if there's any comment that because people have got this on their own property, is there any assistance that could be given, you know, by council staff?
Wendy?
So through the chair, private trees are a very tricky one for us. There isn't physical assistance that we can provide through council. That's not the correct use of council resources. I think the support that we can provide is some advice on perhaps how they may want to tackle the issue, and probably particularly provide advice on how the recent changes in tree legislation may impact any choices that private tree owners may be making. So the legislation has changed and is a lot more stringent. And people need to be aware that they cannot go and do tree damaging activity without a DA. So we can provide advice on what steps someone might need to take. We wouldn't provide advice on who to approach because again, that's not the role of staff to provide private references. So yes, more just general advice.
Does that address your question, Councillor Samble?
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Koch?
Mayor, I sent us through a whole lot of questions to Wendy and did answer them, so thank you very much. I just want a couple of things just want to ask tonight.
Yes.
Page 1225, 1372, it talks about, I suppose it talks about the pruning cycles and how it's changed, because before the trees were pruned every year and now it's later. And now it says here, this has led to significant increase in customer services requests for reactive maintenance work, which create inefficiencies in work programming and a reduction in the effectiveness of budget allocations. Now, I'm concerned if we go back to more regular pruning just to keep, you know, the CRMs down, because if you prune as much as they did before, it actually damages the long-term health of the tree. And I'm very concerned about that. For example, in our street, they've stopped pruning it every year and our trees are actually growing now, because before they were basically being bonsai'd. So I'm very, very concerned if there's a shift towards more regular pruning, just to keep people happy, when good arboricultural practice would deem that the tree doesn't need to be pruned all the time. Yeah. Have you got any comments there, please?
Through the chair, I think it's really important that, I think overall, I think these strategies actually try and set in stone our process for all the different things that relate to trees, and I think sort of try and stop a system where it was a bit this is how we've always done it, and so we're going to keep doing it this way. With regard to cyclic tree pruning, I don't think the intent of that is to suggest that we're just going to go back to when there's a CRM, we're going to go and prune. Indeed, again, the new tree legislation for many instances would prevent that from happening, because there's regulations on how much pruning you can do, to what extent, and within a certain time frame. So that is something that is now considered. However, just even more fundamentally, tree pruning is supposed to be is more from a risk-based assessment. That's the primary thing that we would be assessing, and then looking at, is there a risk? And then are we risking structure, form, and then how are we meeting legislation if we need to do the work? So certainly not any intention to go back to we're going to prune every tree every year. Indeed, we haven't got the resources to do it anyway. So that's 11,000 trees, trying to prune them every year that's impossible. So very much again from that risk approach as the primary consideration.
Thank you. Does that address your question?
Yes, a little bit. It's just that I've found over the years as an arborist, people's appetite for risk of trees is up here when really the risk for trees is there. And I just get concerned when people continually say, oh, the tree's risky, I've got to do this, that and the other. Because as soon as you prune a tree, you create a wound, and that has a cascading effect on the health of a tree. So if you've got a good, well-structured tree, that, formative pruning, structural pruning, and it's healthy and everything else, once it gets to the mature stage, it basically should be left alone, because it will just look after itself, basically. So I get very concerned when people start talking about risk when, in my experience, the actual risk is unless there's a catastrophic event, like a tornado or something, the tree will just sit there, basically. Yeah, that's just my view. Thank you.
Thank you for your view. Any other discussion? Councillor Hennessy, are you happy for me to put the motion? The debate is now closed. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. .7 Council operating hours, Christmas and New Year 2/24/25. Do you want to move that way? Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, just briefly. I think it's a really good policy that we do try and have some buildings open, like the library, for people that don't have that many things on during that Christmas break. So it is expensive for council, but it's a really good thing. And a lot of local councils do it. Barossa try and do it as well, and other councils to acknowledge that we do actually have some buildings open during the Christmas period. And we've also got the Aquatic Centre, but not the extended hours if there's a heat wave, but hopefully there's no heat wave. But it's good that we've got services and there's a balance there. And I think it's something good that the council does every year. It's probably maybe not acknowledged enough, but so I just wanted to point that out.
Really
but
good.
that's it.
I went to the Aquatic Centre today and did 32 laps. So, yeah. So, there you go. Any other discussion? Do you want to second it, Councillor Hennessy? Councillor Hennessy has seconded the motion. Do you want to speak?
Yeah, in seconding it, I strongly support Councillor Hughes's words. As we all possibly realise, Christmas can be an extremely stressful time for people. It is not, for a whole range of reasons, economic, family situations, whatever. It can be a very stressful point, and people do need to reach out and have community connection. So I too support the fact that we try and keep at least the library open as a community centre, recognising that libraries are so much more than just books. They are easily accessible, no charge places where people can meet, talk to other people, and come out of their houses at a time when they may not be feeling full of Christmas cheer. So thank you to the staff for making that available. I think we've struck a reasonable balance. Many councils do open all of the non-public public holidays, but I think we've struck a reasonable balance here. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Hughes, are you happy for me to put the motion? The debate is now closed. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Isaac Solomon's not here. He stepped out. Grants update, 10.8. Grants update. You've got a question? Thank you.
It's just to do with the tennis club, and could you just remind me what our contribution would be? Because I think the development now is $1.something million. Is that right?
Thriving suburbs.
1.8 million, is that right now?
1.8.
What was our contribution again, and what was Tennis Australia's contribution financially?
Who's going to answer that? There you go, Bryce.
Thank you. So through the chair, yes, the most recent cost estimate we submitted as part of the Thriving Suburbs was just over $1.8 million for that project there. The Gorlin District Tennis Association have been able to attract $100,000 of funding through Tennis Australia as part of their external funding program that does court resurfacing and court redevelopment. So they've been able to attract that. Within Council's budget this year, as is shown there, Council has a $180,000 contribution within this year's budget. The majority of that is actually made up of grant funding, so Council's cash contribution within this financial year is $52,000. Depending on which program would be the actual contribution of the applicant, and that being Council, Gorlin District Tennis Association and Tennis Australia as a partnership. The Thriving Suburbs application that we've put in previously had a lower contribution required by the applicant, but that one is still pending. The most recent update was soon. In terms of an outcome of that one there, we are, while waiting for that there, preparing an application for the Office for Export and Racing, which requires a 66% contribution from the applicant, which would be the partnership of those three bodies.
Does that address your question? 1.8 million. 1.884. Yeah, Thriving Suburbs. Yep. Okay. I need somebody to move the motion. Councillor Deputy Mayor Davies, do you wish to speak? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Sambull, thank you. Any discussion on this? Deputy Mayor Davies, do you wish me to put the motion? Thank you. The debate is now closed. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, carried unanimously. Permanent 10.9, permanent part road closure of Holmes Street, Williston. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lorna, thank you. I'll just get that up. Councillor Hughes and Councillor Lorna, thank you. Do you wish to speak on that motion, Councillor Hughes?
Yeah, just briefly, it has been really well circulated. A lot of confusion was caused by people not reading or looking at the maps properly, but it was good to see our community actually getting engaged and yeah, no, I thought that was a great win. But yeah, it's to do with the enlargement of the reserve formally. So yeah, happy to move.
Do you wish me to put the motion? Yes, thank you. The debate is now closed. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, carried unanimously. Monthly finance report. Happy to move that? Yes. Councillor Samble is happy to move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Vallelonga, thank you. Thank you. If there's no further discussion, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you. Information reports, final design, Ailing and Dwyer Limekiln Park Play Space upgrade, final design. Do I have a mover? Councillor Vallelonga, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hughes, thank you. Councillor Vallelonga and Councillor Hughes. If these are information reports, we're just noting them. So I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you. Ailing and Dwyer Limekiln Park tree removal and replacement planting. You move that? Thank you. Yes, you can speak to it. Yes.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, a very good arborist report, very detailed and technically great. Enjoyed reading them. And I suppose it does point out what happens when you over-prune a tree, because it talked about the pruning of the trees near the power lines. If you continually prune, that's what happens. It just degrades the health of the tree. So that's probably what some of the comments I made earlier. If you over-prune, it causes wounds and degradation of the tree, basically health of the tree.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Vallelonga, thank you. Councillor Vallelonga, thank you. Are you happy for me? Oh, you wanting to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, no, it occurs to me that this has the potential to cause some angst in our community. So I think we had a method mentioned of communicating what is going to happen to the community. I think once we start removing those trees, it'll become quite contentious. But if we perhaps are proactive in explaining the very good reasons that the arborist has given us, and the fact that they will be, as it says in the report, replaced, I think that might head off some potential problems that the community always has when they see mature trees coming down. So thank you.
Yes, yes. It's quite shady there now. Yeah. Yes. Do you have a comment, Wendy?
So through the chair, we've been very cognizant. Our preference is that the trees wouldn't go. We would have done the construction around the trees if the tree assessment had come back that they were healthy. However, retaining trees that actually do then impact our construction that are going to only have another life expectancy of a few years.
Are you going to put mature trees there?
We'll put large pot trees in, so they're sort of up to 2 metres when they go in. There is a shade sale in the design as well, so there is immediate shade provision over the new playground. In terms of trying to help people understand why the trees are going, Hayley had all sorts of wonderful ideas, including things like making it even try and make it easy to understand for children, and putting a little sort of almost like bandage around it and saying, I'm not very well. We've had to make some hard decisions around how I'm going to be managed. I'm going to have, a cousin planted, 2 of my cousins are going to be planted while I'm taken out. So we'll find some ways and make sure that as part of that process, people we can share the messaging as much as possible, because on the flip side, we don't want to take out trees. So, you know, it's really important for us to manage that potential mixed messaging of, oh, well, you can't take out these trees, but you're taking these ones out. And sometimes tree health isn't obvious. So, yes, we will definitely have a good think, and Hayley's probably one of our leading people in terms of thinking of different ways of trying to communicate. So,
thank you. Councillor Koch, are you happy for me to put the motion? The debate is now closed. I will put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Recommendations from committees. Recommendations from committees. Recommendations from the Gawler Heritage Collection Committee meeting held on the 10th of October 2024. So, who would like to move that motion? Thank you, Councillor Hennessy, and seconded by Councillor Hughes. That the Gawler Heritage Collection Committee recommends to Council that copies of the following photographs be provided to Miss Rachel Winter: Edward Clement taken at Boston, Lincolnshire, Edward Clement in military uniform, Mrs. Clement with hat, Mrs. Clement with pedestal. So, do you wish to speak? Thank you. I've got a mover and a seconder. I will put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Recommendations from the Infrastructure and Environmental Services Committee meeting held on 8th of October 2024. Recommendation that the Infrastructure and Environmental Services Committee recommends to Council that it receives the draft Strategic Asset Management Plan, approves minor edits to the draft Strategic Asset Management Plan, notes that the final Strategic Asset Management Plan will be presented to the Audit and Risk Committee for its consideration at its 5th November 2024 meeting. Who would like to move that? Thank you, Councillor Solomon. Who would like to second it? Councillor Vallelonga. Thank you. I will put that motion. All those in favour? You voting against? Oh, you voting against? All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Thank you. External bodies reports. Reconciliation Action Plan Working Group Minutes, 18th of 9th 2024. Officers' recommendation that Council notes the Reconciliation Action Plan Working Group Minutes, 18th of September 2024 meeting. Okay, who would like to move that? Councillor Hennessy. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Vallelonga. Thank you. I'll just get that up. Thank you. I'll put that motion. Do you have a question? Yes.
Just a question through you, Mayor. Does seem to be having a problem to actually getting community members actually attending. Is there something being done about that, or looking at changing times, or just how making arrangements, because it just seems to be staff and elected members?
Yeah. Thank you, David.
So through the chair, yes, that's very evident in the minutes and attendances. Linda Weiss, our Community Development Officer, has been engaging directly with the other community members of the working group and providing them with updates. There's been some unfortunate circumstances where a few were intending to come and then couldn't at the last minute, and we are considering altering the time and also looking at a more intensive workshop session upcoming rather than just a meeting session, to try and encourage them to actually attend for a larger period of time so that we can get the feedback that we really do need from our community. But Linda is going out and meeting with those individual community members in between meetings as well, and providing them the commentary and the feedback around the meetings, and keeping them abreast of that information.
Thank you for that update. So we've got a mover and a seconder, and I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Brian, you've got to vote. You've got to vote. You've got to vote. Yeah, again. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Thank you. Questions? Yes, yes.
The committee meeting and Ageing Well committee meeting. There's no minutes here for them.
No, there isn't. Where is that?
If I may also say, in the a number of papers, and that paper that us old fellas get, what's it called, retirement or something thing, it's got about there's special grants available for Ageing Well committees, and I'm just wondering whether or not anything's been picked up about that, but they're two committees that were had.
Okay. Yeah, then.
Thanks, and through the Mayor, thanks for your question, Councillor Assemble. I'm actually meeting with the PAs and this other support staff tomorrow for one of our regular bi-monthly meetings, and we're going to add a tab to our spreadsheet where we record all the meeting data for council meetings, special meetings and committees, and that data's recorded as the year progresses, so that when we come to annual report we can include it. We're going to include a tab now for the working group minutes, because they are often, because it's lots of different staff that need to send them into governance for us to include them. We thought if the staff who are already inputting the details for the meetings in that spreadsheet can assist with the working groups and actually like giving us the link, then we're hoping that people remember to do that, and we get the minutes for inclusion.
We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
Yeah, and that should have been in the minutes. Yeah, it should have been in the minutes.
Yeah, as I said, it's very sort of ad hoc. They come in, sometimes they might come into me, sometimes they might come into the governance support officer, and so we're trying to make it so there's like one central spreadsheet that references where those minutes are, that we can check irrespective of who's putting different reports, that particular report together. And the PAs are in that spreadsheet quite often recording meeting data for the Section 41 committees and the Audit Committee council meetings. So hoping that works and suits everyone. It's more convenient, you're already in there, so hoping that solves the problem.
Thank you. David, do you want to make some comment?
So through the Chair, just responding to Councillor Samble's second comment around, I believe it would be the age-friendly SA grants that Councillor Samble's referencing. Staff are aware. The Ageing Well grant is one that's just come in recently, and we're considering what opportunities there are in that space at this point in time. Yep. That
addresses your question, I think, Councillor Samble. That addresses your question. Thank you. We have no questions on notice. Questions without notice? No? Oh, yes?
I'm getting very, very concerned with some of the stuff that's been said to me by the Business Development Board, the activities of promoting our tourism in the town, and you heard tonight a very passionate person who has been in contact with a lot of people concerning the way Gawler is promoted. You turn the radio on, because I'm old, I listen to the radio a lot, and the ads I hear are about Pauline Murray, the taxation person, and Karina's business. And it's promoting Gawler all the time in these ways, and because she's concerned about her business and that, other people are also concerned about those, and Greg Matz, I'll name in particular, has mentioned to me that things don't seem to be right. The traffic flow, I mean, we've talked about it time and time again, about maybe a one-way street from Calton Road to Lyndoch Road, from south to north. We've talked about these sort of things. Dave, who is now probably on a cruise ship somewhere from the hairdresser, has said he just can't understand it. It's been talked about for so long. And I'm just wondering, and my question is, you know, we've got to start and look, do we want our main street to be our shopping place?
Yeah.
Or do we want Gawler to be our shopping place? And I mean, you know, Gawler Green's the largest turnover shopping area in Gawler.
Yeah.
And you know, you go over there to go to Bunnings or somewhere at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning, you can't find a car parking spot, you know, and things like that. But that's not happening in Murray Street.
No.
And as Karina said tonight, you know, Saturday, oh, is this the morgue? Has everybody died? There's no one in the street. The pubs are still doing well. They're very, very happy the way that things are going. Parking, David and his staff are working their belly out to promote what's on here.
Yeah.
People are saying to me, oh, I'd love to go to that. Where can I park that I don't get a ticket? We know there's no parking for this place. So there's a lot of things just not right.
Yeah.
And I know it's a long-winded question, but I think we've got to take a little bit more time to think about the people that are paying a lot of rates in this town. And, you know, like I went in and got my beard done today and the fella in there said, oh, when are you going to slow the traffic down in the main street? Everybody's scared to come up Murray Street. You know, the little comments like that, because this town's got a lot of very elderly people.
Yeah.
And you know, the buses are working flat out and all that sort of stuff. But our main street, I think we've got to make a decision. Is it going to be a centre point for Gawler? And we don't seem to be coming up and saying, yes, I think we're better, let's try harder. You know, the gentleman at the manager of the reject shop said the same thing, you know, like the car park gets filled up with people in there that don't shop there and so forth.
No.
So I just think I'd like to see that council maybe through David, Wendy or who, if there's something else we can do to be able to get people to utilise that special place, our main street. But we do what we want to do if we want to shut it from Calton Road to Lindock Road, because it's a nightmare. It really is. So I'm just not sure whether anybody's got any other comments on the factor, and also in supportive to the businesses and Karina that have mentioned what they've done tonight.
There you go.
So through the chair, I hope to address some of Councillor Sample's questions within that. So yes, Business Gawler does have a role in promoting Gawler as a business destination, and that is within their constitution and also a key pillar of the funding agreement that Council has with Business Gawler. As Council is aware, we are undertaking an audit of our economic development strategy at this point in time, and we've got a workshop confidential session coming up on the 19th of November to discuss that, and these sorts of comments are perfect for that session. In addition to that, we have undertaken a review of the urban design framework that Council adopted back in 2016, and we've got some future work on that urban design framework slated in future budgets, and that will determine the mix of the main street in terms of development, opportunities, parking strategies that the car parking strategy talks to as well. So there is work that has been done over the last 18 months in that space. There's more work to be done, 100% acknowledge that. And we need to work with the review of our economic development strategy, which is due next year as an outcome of this audit, but also considerations of staffing to deliver economic development within Gawler, such as an economic development officer that can then assist and promote better, from a council perspective, business in Gawler. So there's a lot of stuff that we're doing in that space in the background. It's not overnight things, but we are working on it.
Thank you. Does that address your question, Brian? Thank you. Thank you. Motions without notice? No. Council member attendances and activities. Who would like to start the conversation?
Thank you, Mayor. I just would like to let people know that I was fortunate enough to join the Rotary Light Club, which held a Clean Up Australia Day event on Friday the 11th of October, and they concentrated on Clonley Park the area around the Ford and Edith Street, as well as the tennis courts and skate park. They, as always, did a fantastic job. I didn't do a count, but I'd say there was nearly a dozen huge bags full of rubbish. It is amazing what blows in, rather than I think what is dropped. A lot of fast food, sadly, fast food containers. I don't know if that's people driving and throwing them out the window, but certainly they ended up. So congratulations again to our service clubs for helping us out. In one of our most popular and well-used parks, it's great that the community is supporting, supporting all of us by doing that clean-up activity.
Thank you for that update. Any Councillor Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, so on the topic of the Gawler Light Rotary, actually, I've been working with them on the formation of a Rotaract Club, which is the 18 to 30-year-olds demographic. So if anyone knows someone in the area who's 18 to 30 and is interested in volunteering in their local community, I think it would be great to get some service club activity happening in that age range as well.
Thank you for that. Any other updates, Councillor Hughes?
Thursday night this week is the AGM for the Gawler District's Health Advisory Council. So we've got 2 guest speakers. We've got Naomi Rutten, and we've also got the lady who's in charge of all the surgical that happens at Gawler Health Service as well. Speaking of, I forget her name. Which is so 2 really good speakers as well. And it's 6:30 at
6:30.
In the meeting room. Thursday
night?
Yep, this Thursday
night. Okay, wonderful. Any other events that people have gone to? Okay. Council member attendance and activities.
Well, you probably heard of Cosby, on telly, and that sort of stuff. And
yeah.
He's wanting goats. I mean, there's a lot of goats around, and no matter what way you look, you can find them. And we've got a lot of them on our property. And we rounded up some the other day, but I know I'm getting old because I fell off 3 times, and one goat actually came back and had a charge at me. So I had an exciting weekend.
He challenged you?
No.
Challenged you?
Joking. Is that a joke too, is it? It was great. We had 30 mil of rain, so Sambo went back to being 18 and did some circle work out in the paddocks in the ute, So, I just had a fantastic weekend, so I hope everybody else did.
Thank you for that. Confidential reports, nil. I'll close the meeting at 9:12 p.m. Fantastic. Awesome. Fantastic. Awesome. We got through.